Hi everyone, today we're going to learn about multiplication of mixed numbers. Our learning target for today is I can multiply fractions and mixed numbers, including those in number stories. Let's start off today with a quick review of partial products. When we think about partial products, what we want to always do is multiply together all of the different parts of the number once they're written in expanded form. So the first thing that we'll do is write 34 in expanded form. So we'll make that 30 plus 4. And then 5 is just 5 in expanded form. Okay? So what we want to do is multiply each of those parts. So 30 times 5, and then 4 times 5. 30 times 5 is 150. 4 times 5 is 20. And then we simply add the two together. So the answer is 170. When we multiply two-digit numbers, I like to use this box structure to help me keep track of all of the different products that I come up with. Because when we do two-digit numbers, it means that we're going to end up with 4 different products because we have to multiply all of the different pieces together. The first thing that I'm going to start with is writing each of these in expanded notation. So I'm going to write 74 as 70 plus 4. And then I'll write 52 is 50 plus 2. So I'm going to start then by placing the two numbers along my boxes here. So I'll do 70 plus 4 on top, and then I'll do 50 plus 2. Now, once you get to this step, you can really put them however you like. I like to start with the biggest number first, just because I think it's a good place to start. So I'm going to start with doing 70 times 50, and that ends up in my biggest box. Okay, so the biggest box goes with the biggest number. So 70 times 50 is really the same thing as 7 times 5, which is 35. And then we have 2 powers of 10, right here and right here. So I'm going to add on 2 zeros right here. Okay, now I'll do 50 times 4. So 5 times 4 is 20, and then I have one more power of 10 here in my 50, so I'm going to add a 0. 70 times 2, 7 times 2 is 14, one more 0, power of 10, one more 0 in the product, and then 4 times 2 is 8. Lastly, we'll add together all of those partial products. 3,500 plus 200 plus 140 plus 8. And then that's our final product, 3,848. Okay, let's apply the same idea of using partial products with mixed numbers and fractions. So I know that I'm going to need to multiply together all of the parts and then add the partial products at the end. So I'll start with 2 4/5, and I'm going to think about this as 2 plus 4/5. So I'm really writing it in expanded notation. And then each of those parts I'm going to need to multiply by 1/3. So I'm going to kind of show you what that might look like. Off to the side, just to keep everything organized, I'm going to write 2 times 1/3. And then I'm going to multiply 4/5 times 1/3. So instead of 2, I'm going to write it as 2 over 1. And then I just multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Then I'm going to multiply 4/5 times 1/3. Now I need to add together 2/3 plus 4/15. Now I bet you're seeing like a little bit of a hang up here, and that's that we don't have common denominators. So the first thing that we need to do before we can even add these together is to rewrite them with common denominators. The common denominator is always going to be the biggest of the denominators because one will always be a factor of the other one. So I'm going to rewrite 2/3 as 15ths, and that would be 10/15 plus 4/15, and that equals 14/15, and that's our final answer. Okay, here's one for you to try. So I want you to pause the video and work through this problem. When you unpause the video, you'll see how I worked through the problem. Check your work against mine. Okay, so when I put this one into lowest terms, I got 16 2/3. Is that what you got? Okay, now I want to show you another method for multiplying fractions and mixed numbers, and that's to turn them both into improper fractions and then multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. So I'm going to first turn 4 2/3 into an improper fraction. So to do this, remember that I multiply 4 times 3 because 3 is how many parts are in a whole. So I have 4 3/3, so that becomes 12, and then I add on the 2. So 14/3, and then I'm going to multiply that by 6 over 1. Then I need to multiply 14 by 6, and I can do this fairly easily in my head. And I think through this as 6 times 10, which is 60, plus 6 times 4, which is 24, so 84/3. Now, this ends up being a little bit of division in order to turn this back into a mixed number, but that's okay. I'm going to just go ahead and do the division down here. So this becomes 28, and actually I don't have a remainder, so it's a whole number, 28. Okay, now I want you to try this one. Pause the video and give it a try. When you unpause, you'll see my work. Okay, I came up with a whole number of 3. Is that what you came up with? Okay, finally, we can multiply 2 mixed numbers together. This is probably the trickiest thing to do with fractions. It's just very many steps, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too difficult. It's just a lot of steps to keep track of. So I'm going to show you first using the partial products method like we did before. So I'm going to rewrite 2 1/2 as 2 plus 1/2. And I'm going to rewrite 3 2/3 as 3 plus 2/3. In these boxes then I'm going to multiply all the parts together. So I'll multiply here 2 times 3, which is 6. Then I'll multiply 3 times 1/2, which is 3/2. 2 times 2/3, which is 4/3, and then 2/3 times 1/2, which is 2/6. Now, at the end, I have to add all of the parts together. So I have to add 6 plus 3/2, plus 4/3, plus 2/6. Now you can see here this is a little bit problematic because I need to turn these all into a common denominator. So my common denominator here is 6. So I'm going to start by just rewriting each of these off to the side. So I'm going to turn 3/2 into 6 by multiplying by 3 over 3. So 9/6. 4/3 I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. 8/6. And then 2/6. And I come up with, kind of ran out of space, 9 plus 8 is 17, plus 2 is 19. So I'm going to write up here, I have 6 and 19/6, which of course I need to change because that's an improper fraction. So 19/6, that gives me another 3. So I'll have 9 and 1/6. Another thing that I can do if I'm trying to multiply 2 mixed numbers, and it sort of depends on what you actually start off with, what method you choose, because we can turn these both into improper fractions and then multiply across, but then that tends to get a pretty large numerator, and then you have to do some division at the end. So I'm going to show you how to do that one now. So I'm going to multiply 5 2/5 times 6 1/3. And I'll start off with rewriting each of these as an improper fraction. So 5 2/5 is the same as 27/5 times 6 1/3, which is the same as 19/3. Now, I have to multiply here 27 times 19. That's some pretty big multiplication. So I'm actually going to do that off to the side. And I think I'll show you traditional multiplication for this. Ooh, we're going to end up with a pretty big number here. So I end up with 513/15. That's pretty big. Now I can't leave it like that, so I actually have to divide 513/15 divided by 15. So I'll think to myself, how many times does 15 go into 51? And it'll go in 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. So 51 minus 45 is 6. And I bring the 3 down. How many times will 15 go into 63? Well, it'll go in 4 times. 15 times 4 is 60. So I have a remainder of 3. So then this equals 34 3/15. Okay, and that's the same thing as 34 1/5. So you really have to take it problem by problem and decide which is the best way to multiply when you get two mixed numbers. Okay, here's the time for your quiz. So today there's going to be 4 problems because I want to see if you can actually multiply those two mixed numbers together. And you might want to try a different strategy with each one of them to see if you understand how to do it using both the partial products and turning them both into improper fractions. Have a great night.